haven't even really known where to start on all of this. My life has been very hidden from the public eye, which has been really good and really necessary for me to heal and to be able to show up really honestly and genuinely, not only before you guys, but way more importantly before the Lord. If you've been kind of like on this journey with me, you probably know me from my worship music. It's been so full of heartfelt and authentic emotions and like thoughts that I've had about who I believed God to be. I've spent my entire life writing songs, journaling, praying. It's been words. It's always been about words for me. It's like worship for me is getting all of the words out that have been bottled up in my heart and like giving them to the Lord and being like, here you go, you can have it. Like, this is the thing that my heart has been like crying out, and actually being able to translate how my heart is feeling about who I believe God to be and giving those words to Him. Over the last few years, as I've been in the Christian music industry, I've written an endless number of songs, and tens of millions of you have listened to them and watched them on YouTube. And I've traveled the world and I've preached the gospel. I've shared my testimony. I've spoken about the Lord with a very confident faith. I wanted to be really transparent with you though, because I have been in a really deep wrestle for truth about who the Lord really is and what He really values. It's been a really important time for me in my walk with the Lord to be able to set aside time and space separate from all of the outside voices that I heard in the world around me and even in the church around me. Not that any of these other voices are things that shouldn't be listened to or should be listened to. It was just a matter of getting into a space where everything was quiet and still enough that I could hear the Lord and I could learn about His heart from Him. I think that's a really intimate and important thing for all of us to be able to go through with the Lord, is to go find Him in the secret place and run there and be like, God, I want to know your heart like you know mine. That's ultimately been the cry of my heart for so many years. But to be in this time, it's been a lot of grief and a lot of loss, and it's been really, really hard. And the Lord didn't leave me there alone. He was there with me the whole time, and He was revealing Himself to me in ways that I didn't know He could reveal Himself to a person. He's so much better than I could have ever known Him to be. He's more powerful than I knew, and He's more holy than I knew. He's more loving than I knew. He's the most tender-hearted God, but He never backs down from what He truly values for the sake of like accepting us as we are. He loves us. He really does. But He has things that are important. And sometimes we don't lean in and linger long enough to listen to Him and to know what those things really are, because we're so committed to clinging to our own beliefs, our own ideas of what's true, our own religious stances, our own faith, really, our own sense of security and certainty. At the end of the day, I found myself walking through my life with that very same confident faith, where I was sure I knew God. I was sure I knew who He was and what He valued and what His nature was like. And I think I did know Him to an extent. I really do. I've been walking with Him all this time and all these years, and I've had so many different opportunities to be able to get to know Him in so many different ways. I've known Him in the miraculous, and I've known Him as my healer, but I've also known Him as a God who grieves with me, and I've known Him as a God who's holy and cares about how I live my life. I think all of these are different facets of God that are really important for us to recognize and acknowledge. I wanted to share with you a secret that I've learned about intimacy with God. and how to actually take your walk with the Lord and keep walking down those stair steps into the deep end. So you don't just end up staying in the shallow end where it's safe and your feet are on the ground. But you can be in a place, in a position with the Lord where the waters of his presence can be rushing over your head, and you can be swimming in the depths of his presence, swimming in the depths of his word, just completely drenched in who he is. So I went on a search for the wisdom of God, and I had to go to him. I had to be willing to lay down a lot before him, because when I went to him to find out what was true about him, I realized I was wrong about him in a lot of things. And a lot of things that I had been taught my whole life about the Lord weren't actually the way that he saw himself. And the ways that I'd been taught to view the world and the people around me weren't actually the ways that he viewed the world and the people around me. And I was faced with the decision of, do I align myself with the thoughts of God so that I'm thinking what he's thinking? Do I align myself with the emotions of God so I'm feeling what he's feeling? Do I align myself with the words of God so I'm speaking what he's saying? Do I align myself with the actions of God so I'm doing what he's doing? Am I willing to lay down a feeling that's comfortable and safe and secure, where I know exactly what I believe about him, and I know exactly what he wants to do, and I know exactly what he's capable of? Am I willing to lay down my comfortable feeling of faith for a moment to ask him what's really true, and sit for a second in the presence of God with my questions, without the fear that he's going to reject me because I wasn't certain for a moment? I think so many of us have such a hard time getting to that point where we can actually go to God, and instead of saying, I know this to be true about you, so I'm asking this in your name. Instead of doing that, setting that aside and being like, okay, God, I need you so desperately in every area of my life that I even need you to show me what to know about you. Otherwise, I'm going to interpret my own experience, the teachings that have been taught to me my whole life growing up in church. I'm just going to repeat them. We have to be willing to come to God and say, I trust you more than my own religious stances. I trust you more than what I know. I trust you more than what I believe to be true. I want to stand on what is true more than I want to stand on faith. I want to stand on you more than I want to stand on my idea of you, because so often our ideas of God are so much less than who he is, and it's idolatry when we aren't willing to lay down the picture of God we have in our head, the image of God that we worship, and it's smaller than him and it's less than him. The reason is because we're proud and we're fearful. We don't think we'll have anything left to hold on to if we lay down everything. We have to be willing to lay down our sense of identity that we have by association with what we believe. And that's been a process that I've been walking through. I've been going to the Lord and realizing I was scared to ask him questions. But how do you have a relationship with somebody that you can't ask questions? If we're not listening to him, we're not asking him questions, we're not actually seeking to know him and seeking to hear from him instead of just through the grapevine from other people about him, how are we going to have intimacy? We'll forever stay in the shallow end, hearing about the deep end from other people in the shallow end. We're taught faith is confident and sure. We're taught that faith is secure and without doubt, without question. We're taught that faith is immovable and unshakable. We're taught that faith doesn't listen to the outside voices or the other perspectives. And we're taught that faith doesn't give space for things that oppose it. Faith doesn't give space for thought. Faith doesn't give space for analysis. And we villainize things that God created, like logic and reason and rationale, things that God is. He made us in his image, in his likeness. We are like him when we think, so long as we line up our thoughts with his. We are like him when we reason, so long as we line up our reason with his. And we are like him when we react, so long as our reactions line up with his. Because that's what worship is. It's about the continual and pure pursuit of seeing God rightly, seeing him for who he really is. If we don't make it our whole life's mission to know him for who he is, we'll miss it. We'll miss everything. And we'll get to heaven and realize that the God we worshiped all this time looks nothing like the God that we could have been worshiping all along. That's why I've been doing a lot of repenting lately. Repenting is a big fancy church word that we use a lot of times, and it means to turn your back on one way and start behaving in a whole different way. Start acting differently, start talking differently, thinking differently, all in a way that lines up more with the Lord. I think repenting is an act of worship. When we say we love God or we fear the Lord, are we worshiping him and are we repenting? Are we in absolute adoration of him, of who he really is, and creating a life that reflects that nature here on the earth? Are we looking more like him? Are we becoming like who we are beholding? So I've been repenting a lot for my pride, for my fear. I had a really confident faith, and I had a really deep fear of uncertainty because I didn't want to be rejected by God for asking questions about him, and I didn't want to be rejected by any of the people that I loved and I cared about so deeply because I was asking a question. I didn't want it to be perceived as this sin to not know everything for a moment or for a lifetime. So I actually want to take a minute and ask for your forgiveness too, just like I've been asking for the Lord's forgiveness. And he's been gracious and kind enough to me to give it to me. He's given me all of the mercy I could have ever imagined and more. But I owe you guys an apology too, because all of you have listened to all of these songs that I've sang in faith, confident faith, instead of a curious faith and a humble faith, like I should have been singing. I'm sorry for any ways that my life and my songs have pointed your attention towards an idea of God that is less than who he really is. I have learned that he is so much more magnificent than I ever could have dared to dream that he could be, hoped to imagine he could be. I've been sitting with questions that have made my most foundational beliefs about God's character tremble. I've been allowing the Lord to utilize the powerful gifting of critical thinking that he's placed on my life. I'm no longer unaware of the ignorance I have operated in, and I am sorry. Sometimes we accept blindly unchallenged liturgies and dogma because we feel so much fear of actually rising up and staring at everything that we believe in the eyes and asking why. Because that's a very brave, bold, audacious thing to do. Because in order to have the audacity to ask why, you have to have a completely separate notion of faith. You have to have a completely separate definition of faith. Faith can no longer be synonymous with certainty, with identity, with comfortability, with knowledge, or paradigms, or perspectives. Faith has to be more than our internal sense of purpose. It has to be more than our internal sense of assurance or hope that we cling to. Faith has to be more than the secure, steady ground that we stand on that says, I belong here in this conversation because I have something to say. Faith has to be willing to step back, listen to the answers of questions that are hard to ask, because in order to ask them, you have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to not know something. In order to operate from a humble and curious faith, you have to be willing not to be the expert in the room on a topic, which is so hard because we're taught it's the opposite our entire lives. But faith is more than that. Faith is fearless, it's brave, it stares its own perspectives in the eyes and asks why. It's designed to seek wisdom. It's designed to seek understanding and knowledge and truth. Faith was never supposed to be about us and what we know and what we have to say. Faith has always been about the search for God and who He is and what He values and lining ourselves up with Him. Faith is about the pursuit of wisdom. Are we willing to cultivate time and space to embrace these difficult questions and emotions and beliefs and thoughts that we have? Are we willing to be more committed to growth than to certainty? I know in my own life, I've been surrendering, including my own sense of rightness. And I'm so excited for you guys to be able to be part of this with me, because I've been writing really honest things these days, and some of them are full of grief and some of them are full of questions, and some of them are full of real life experiences, hard things that I've had to walk through. And I'm hoping that by sharing these things, you'll feel connected to the Lord the way that I felt connected to the Lord during those moments when, just like David showed up honestly with his questions and with his feelings to God, and he said, all right, here I am, fully, completely, honestly, all the vulnerability, everything laid out on the table. Or like Solomon was willing to go to the Lord and say, I have questions, I need something from you, I need wisdom. If it's the only thing I have, if it's the only thing I can get, that's what I need from you. But you're gonna have to give it to me because I can't get it on my own. But I'll do anything for it, and I'll keep searching for you. Or like Job, where are you, God? Who are you? He asked God a lot of questions. God had a lot of questions for him too. Asking questions is not outside the nature of God. When we ask questions, we're doing something that we can only do because we're made in the image and likeness of God. We're just like our Father, full of curiosity, full of questions, and hopefully full of an eagerness to listen to the answers. I'm so excited for you to be able to hear these songs. I'm so excited for you to be able to read these books. I have so many surprises coming for you. I've been taking things straight out of my prayer journals, putting them in a format so that you can walk through this process that I've been walking through with me. I'm so excited to learn alongside of you, to grow in wisdom alongside of you, and to keep seeking the Lord and His heart above all else alongside of you, because I have definitely learned a lot in this last season. I'm sure you have too. The Lord is doing a new thing though. He's unveiling our eyes, and it's all for His glory. Baruch HaShem.